Welcome to Nomad Media, Automotive Tales, where we tell some history, vehicle stories, and a little bit of unique and personal experiences. Let's get right into it. All right, so today we have Rob Colannino here with us, and we're going to be going over his 1970 Plymouth Roadrunner. And this is the first time I've ever seen this car, but boy, does it look good in person. Rob, how did you come to want this car, and what's the story behind it? Just tell us about it, please.
Well, I was a kid growing up in the 80s. I was an 80s high school kid, and my friends, a lot of friends, had Mopars. So 83, 84, I graduated in 85. One of my best friends had a 69 Plymouth Roadrunner, 383, 4-speed, AC car. We drove that till the tires fell off of that thing. He also had a Cuda. Another best friend had a Cuda. His brother had a big green Power Wagon. Another guy had a 67 GTX 440. Ooh. So you can see, I was a Mopar guy from the start.
You were all over the Mopar crowd.
So that was all in high school. It was fun and dandy. Well, you got to grow up sometime, and after high school, I went in the Air Force. Spent 26 years in the Air Force with no Mopars, none. No, I wasn't. I got a couple motorcycles, but I wasn't a car guy at all for those 26 years. I retired in 2012. Moved up here to Athens, Alabama in 2014, and I said, okay, I've been saving for nearly 30 years. It's time to reward myself with the car I want. So I started looking. 2015, the Hellcat came out, the Hellcat Challenger. I'm like, ooh, I want one. And I was a civilian contractor overseas, and you could get cars from overseas, from AFES, Army Air Force Exchange Service, at a good price. You know how the dealership marks everything up, $5,000, $10,000? Well, AFES doesn't do that. So I went to the AFES guy. I was in Iraq at the time. I said, I want a new 2015 Hellcat Challenger. He says, we only have 5 slots through all of the military to give out Challengers, to be able to get them. And here we're doing a raffle. The raffle's in a month. I put my name in. A month later, I didn't win a chance to get the Hellcat. I said, okay. So I came back home a couple weeks after that, and I said, okay, I have this budget. I want something, I'm going to go old school then. I felt my high school days coming back. I'm like, man, that was such good times, cruising, drag racing down the street and cruising the Pike. We called it the Pike, Burger King, McDonald's. We'd make the loop, and, it was a great time.
Was that in Athens?
No, that was in Wethersfield, Connecticut.
Wethersfield?
I'm a northern boy.
Okay.
But okay. I was born in the north, but I'm really southern boy.
We've done adopted you, right?
Yes, this is it. I love it here. This is the best place to live.
Oh yeah.
So I started looking for cars. I said, this is my budget. I'm either going to build one or buy one, because And I'm looking. It took me a few weeks and weeks and weeks, and I was looking for. I wanted a Roadrunner. I wanted a 70 Roadrunner. Color didn't matter, it didn't. And all of a sudden I find this. I'm like, oh, I think it was on, I forget what website it was on, but I was like, oh, wow. Nashville, Tennessee. I said, it's an hour and 20 minutes away. So I contact the guy. He says, yep, still, so I got it. I'm like, okay, I'm interested. He says, come up, give it a test drive. So I went up, my wife and I drove up there, met him, a guy named Mike. He's associated with the Music City Mopar Club. We started talking and looked around the car. I said, shook his hand. I said, you got a deal. Either a week later, 10 days later, he delivered it here. He trailered it down. We did the deal, and I've had it since 2015. It's just, and Mike, great guy. He's a Mopar Nationals judge. So I asked Mike, I said, where'd the car come from? He says, well, I bought it from a guy in Utah. The guy in Utah, and I looked this guy up, and he had a website. I was like, oh, okay, and it showed the restoration. So I have a bunch of pictures from the restoration, and he was a Toyota FJ40 guy, a rebuilder. He wasn't a Mopar guy, first Mopar this guy did. So he went on the forums, and he wanted to go as stock as possible, you know, as close to original as possible, but obviously not everything. So I called, this is my resto mod. It's not a, you know, it's not an original, but it's pretty close. So he got it, and he did the body work, the paint, put most of it together, and he got the engine back. Now the engine was being held hostage. So the guy who had it, not Mike, the first owner was Dallas. The guy who started the restoration, his name was Dallas. He got it, and he's like, "Where's the engine?" Well, this engine builder has it, and because he didn't pay, the original guy didn't pay for it. So Dallas had to go negotiate with the guy to get his original engine, to get the original engine back. So the builder did a good job. I got it dynoed, and it's been dynoed. It's been gone through. So fast forward, now Mike has the car up in Tennessee. He finishes it. Now, like I said, he's a Mopar Nationals judge, so he finishes it to as close to original as possible. You know, like in the trunk, the spray in the trunk had to be, you know, this high, and I was like, okay, the paint markings like on the rear end and all that kind of stuff's in there. So like I said, it's a 1970 Plymouth Roadrunner, 383, 4-speed, 391 rear, white interior, air grabber hood. It's pretty much original. I mean, obviously been redone, but all the original parts are here.
Okay.
The disc brakes are not original. They're original drums, but Mike converted it to discs.
That's a pretty good upgrade. I did that myself on my vehicle as well, and I like it. Now, I want to ask you about these wheels. Like, are these your style, or are these the previous guy's style? Because I like these.
This is my style. The previous guy had some Boyd Coddington one-offs. Now, back in 2013-ish, I think, when he got them, they were Boyd Coddington originals. Now they're called the Magneto. So it's a production wheel now, but back then they were one-off originals. And I didn't, you know, they were mags. I like the factory look better, and this, you know, these are 17s. They're not the 15s that you know would have come on the car, but yeah, but it's they're a lot.
Wheels
are
one of the things that I personally like. So I have a basically original car as well.
Yes.
But I actually. I'm not an original guy. I'm not too much caring about it. I'm not a guy that agrees with destroying a car, but you know, do your own little taste to it. And wheels are one of the things I tend to like, and I like these. I mean, the classic look, but modern. Classics mixed with modern. That's a really good style in my opinion.
17-inch. They handle well.
Oh yeah.
You know, it just looks, you know, like it's meant to be. People ask me, "Are those the original wheels?" I'm like, no, they're repops. Well, the reproductions of the original wheel, but bigger. Yeah. You know, but yeah, it's like I said, it's a good car. It's a very dependable car. Like I said, for this interview, I hadn't really started the car in months. It's been sitting in the garage collecting dust, you know. And I came out here last night. It fired right up. I was like, oh, you gotta love it, you know.
I see this is a postcard too. Not to really deviate here from the storytelling, but like a lot of people don't know what postcards are. So like the back window does not roll down; it pops out. So, I know it took me a long time to figure that out.
Yes, and that's what it is. So like I said, these windows pop out; they don't roll down.
Yep. Took me a long time to figure that out, but I'm sorry to deviate that because it's just kind of a random thing. But it's like, hey, this is a postcard, like. Yeah,
and the previous owner, Mike, the guy up in Nashville, told me, he says he's never seen a road, and he's been around a lot of years. He's never seen a Roadrunner in this color with this interior as a postcard. He says it could be. He said it could be a one-of-one car.
Ooh.
I've seen two. Gold, you know, Citron Mist is the color. I've seen two 70 Citron Mist cars. One was actually Citron Mist. The other was Citron Mist painted purple over it. Somebody painted purple. Well, they got it like that.
Oh,
but yeah, I was like, and I looked at their data tag one day. You know, I was looking at the car show. I was like, this is a Citron Mist car. And I'm thinking, I want this someday, but that's another story.
Anyway, with the overspray, I mean, everybody should do their car in the way that they like it. You mentioned that your friend had a 383. What type of engine you had?
This is a 383. Yeah.
All right, so you matched up then.
It's matched up. Yeah, I said it's original engine. Now it's been bored out a little bit. Got a little bit of a cam, but it's the original intake. I do have a 770 Avenger on it. It's got electronic ignition, electronic fuel pump. So there are the resto mod parts of it.
Yeah.
It just works, you know.
I call those creature comfort features.
Creature comforts,
just because
yeah.
if you find somebody that's putting points in a car
Yeah.
these days, it's like, well, you know it's an older fella, because it definitely ain't someone my age doing it.
And this is not, if it was totally original car, I could see doing that, but it's not. It's not, you know,
I
like,
wouldn't even see it then personally,
you know,
but that's
I'm
just
like,
me.
it's too far from original stock to go back there. I'm like, no, I like it the way it is. It drives great. You know, they say it's your car, you do what you want to do with it.
Exactly.
Yes.
So Rob, tell me about some of these high school stories that made you want this car.
So like I said, we did a lot of street racing, you know, back in the day. But we did some legit drag racing too. So I didn't have a Mopar back then, but my friend did, and I would work on his car all the time. So we had Colchester Dragway in Connecticut. And this is, like I said, this is the back in the day. There were no trailers. We had street slicks in the trunk. We drove it up to Colchester Dragway, jacked it up, put the street slicks on, disconnected the exhaust from the headers. You know, all you do is disconnect them and then put 2 bolts in them. So now you're running open headers. Do a little bit of some kind of a tune that you can. Remember, this is original. His car was original. I even had an AC, but we had taken the belt off for more horsepower. And we did, you know, we did drag racing against other high school kids. So it's a whole field of high school kids, and you're racing Chevelles, Camaros, Oldsmobile 442s. It was a classic car drag race. If you were, you know, to go back in time.
It wasn't classic in those days.
It wasn't classic back then.
So,
this was 84-ish. So, you know, the cars are 14 years old, which really isn't that old for back then. You know?
Is this like an after-school event, or like?
Yeah,
I mean,
this
is obviously friends, but
this is all friends, and this is an open event that they do every year. They invite the high school kids up. Kind of like what some people try to do now is get the younger generation involved. So they were still trying to do that. They were trying to keep the kids involved safely, because they didn't, you know, street racing, you get hurt, and you know, all that stuff. But we ran the car all day. You know, it was kind of cool being the pit guy. You know, gassing it and checking the tire pressure and giving a little tune here and there. And at the end of the day, he didn't win first place, but at least 5 or 6 adults came over and said, "Tell me about your car," to my friend, because they said, "You didn't win." I think it was a consistency. So he ran a 12.2, and then he ran a 11.9. It wasn't close enough for him to win. But they were like, "This is a really nice car," you know.
So thinking about those numbers he just said,
Yeah.
I know a lot of people out there probably hear this stuff on YouTube or TV all the time about 10-second cars and 9-second cars and 8-second cars, and the newest Dodge, you know, Demon is whatever it is.
Yeah,
but
8 seconds.
12 seconds for a factory car, though. You got to remember, these are high school kids racing these cars. This is not professional drag racers or somebody who's dropped $100,000 into cars. No, they went and bought a car, took it to the drag strip, unhook the headers for extra horsepower.
I mean, this is the daily driver we drive to high school every day.
Yeah.
And he'd go to his job every day. This was his daily driver. But that's just, we kept it running, and we did a lot of crazy stuff like, oh, let's try running with no air cleaner on the street and see what stupid things like that. But it was fun. And like I said, we go down to the Berlin Turnpike in Connecticut. That was the cruise spot. McDonald's and Burger King, they were about half-mile apart, and we'd go cruise through the drive-through and come back, go through McDonald's and come back, park the cars. And deal, if you wanted to race, someone would come through, hey, you want to run it? And then there was a spot a couple miles away where we can get on an old abandoned highway and we could run it. And now if you were cruising along the pike and someone came next to you and you wanted to run, what we did back in the day is we hooked up the reverse lights to a switch. So you kind of get in front of the person and you'd flick your reverse lights saying, hey, I want to race. I want to race. And then you'd race, and if you won, you were in front of the person, you put your reverse lights back on again saying, yeah, you lost. It was just, you know, things like that. We used to, like the windshield wiper reservoir, we'd hook up hoses to go to the back tire, and we put bleach in there or some, you know, something so you could smoke the tires, like stupid things like that. It was, but that's the memories of that. And then when I found this car, I was like, oh, I have to have this car. Now this car, I'll never let this car go. I have 3 sons and a daughter. They're going to get the car. It'll never leave this family ever.
So I'm sure, like, since you say that and everything, I'm sure they know your stories probably pretty well.
Yep.
What is something that you want to make sure that, like, you hope that they never forget about this car and Dad, no matter what happens, like, in the future? Like, what is something you would want them to remember forever?
Well, probably that I was able to reach back to my, I call it childhood, my upbringing, and take something from the past and bring it to the present. That's what, and it took, you know, 85 to 2015. So that's a long time to, but don't lose, you know, hold on to that dream, hold on to that thing you said, hey, I really want to do this someday, and it can happen. Like, it took me 30 years to save up, you know, to buy this car, and here it is. You know, I got it.
Yeah, no, you got exactly what you wanted.
Got exactly what I want. Yeah.
And see, that's perfect way to go about it too. It's like it wasn't instant gratification type thing, but it was like so that's what you're getting at here. It's like you want them to know that this wasn't instant gratification. It's something that you worked for.
Yeah,
and
a lot of hard work. You know,
that's why it's important.
Being in the military all those years, you know, you lived the military life. I was gone a lot. You know, I was deployed a lot, and you really didn't have time to do something like this. It would have sat and collected dust. Yeah. You know, but so when I got out and finally retired, I'm like, I'm going to do something for me. All the kids were, well, except my youngest, he was still in middle school, but all of them were, you know, graduated on their own. And I was like, yeah, it's time to do something for me. So this is it, and it's, you know, I drive it. I do a lot of local car shows. It's got 391s in it. It cruises great at 55, you know, but I guess I need to put a overdrive in it or something so I can really cruise. But I was like, or get a trailer, you know, so I can go farther, you know, do some farther car shows. But yeah, it's I do a lot of local shows, you know, as much as I can. Yeah.
I know you're involved with the TVMC.
Yep, Tennessee Valley Mopar Club, and also the North Alabama region of the Antique Club, Antique Club of America. I'm involved with those guys too. Okay. They're a great bunch of folks. A lot of Mopar guys around here, and there's a lot more classics than you think. You know,
they stay hidden pretty well.
They do.
But once someone sees you out in one,
oh,
all the stories, phone calls, contacts, it all comes out pretty quickly.
Yes, and you know that, you know, even the Mopars that weren't that wanted back then. You know, I'm talking the 72 and up type of car. You know, Chargers, or you know, they're coming back now. People love Dusters. They want a Duster. They want, you know, they want those type of cars. Scamps, you know, like things that were kind of boxy back then or not cool. Now they're cool. You know, it's very nice to have something like that. Yeah, these are just, like I said, they're great cars.
And one of these things that you mentioned too, like, and I'm going back a little bit on your stories here, but like with the racing that y'all did, and things like, so I'm glad that you told that story, like, because a lot of people don't think about modern cars that way, which is one reason why car culture is in a very precarious spot. And given my experience, your experiences, my daily career job, you know, it's like, I fully understand this from a perspective that a lot of people can't, where it's like, those are things that you can't do these days. Like, you can't just pull off your windshield wiper, which is funny in one sense, where you can't just pull that off without throwing a DTC code.
Yes. Like, yeah, there you go.
You can not, I'm not going to say you brick your car, but it'll throw some codes, and you're going to have some lights on that you don't want on, and You can't do things like that on modern cars. Like, and it's a shame because, I mean, why can't a company just make a simple car anymore that's like, this is what it does?
That
Like,
someone
you know,
can, average guy can buy and work on.
yeah.
Now you got to have a code reader, special tools.
Yep, but it's hard for people to imagine that this was life in the 80s.
Yes.
Like, even just the 80s, not even like
Yeah.
going back to 70s when the car
70s.
came out, or 60s,
Oh, yeah.
because people think 60s, it's like when it was the heyday. But
My dad told me stories about when he would drag race as a kid. So in his Volvo, you know, but that's what they did. I mean, there was
Yep.
just, he goes, yeah, my mom was a big drag racer. She had a 55 Chevy, I think. She goes, yeah, we used to cruise the pike and we used to do all stuff. I'm like, to hear those stories, I'm like, man, this is cool. So it's okay if it's okay if I do it. My parents did it, so I'm going to do it.
And I can only imagine, you know, being in my field, which I'm not going to mention that, just
Right.
but I'm sure I think you know about it.
Yep.
Being in my field, I can only imagine what some of those engineers that went from street racing on the street like that and
Yes.
just testing weird stuff like putting bleach
Yeah,
on the tire, like going from that to applying it to the industry where it's like, hey, now we're making big power, we're making all this stuff. Like, how much innovation came from just the trial and error by you and your friends at 16 years old out at Sonic.
Yes.
You know, or wherever y'all are, like Sonic or Burger King is where you kept saying. So it was like,
Now, being in Connecticut, in the wintertime, you can't really race because it's, you know.
Yeah,
so everyone had another car, their winter car or whatever, and a lot of the time were huge boats. Like I had a 71 Pontiac Bonneville 455. My friend had a huge big Thunderbird. Another guy had a Cadillac. But we would still race those, you know, having fun. And one thing we used to do, we used to take the air cleaner and turn it upside down. So it would open up the air cleaner. Instead of being a closed air cleaner, you turn the lid upside down and you leave about this much gap, and it make a, you know, whoa, make that sound. But it was just things like that. Hey, we can get more air in here if we flip this lid up. And it was just, wow, you know, hey, this is working, you know, things like that. You know, the engineers probably like, oh yeah, these kids are doing this. I wonder what we do if we really did that.
yeah.
It's interesting things that, you know, we did it as a kid. And like I said, we drove these cars everywhere. One story with the Roadrunner.
They're still on the road, man.
They're still on the road. So we were cruising, my friend and I, in his green Roadrunner, and we had about, let's see, 2 people in the front and like 4 people in the back, cruising from Connecticut, going to Massachusetts to Riverside Park, going up 91, doing like 130 miles an hour. Like, what are we? No one's got seatbelt on. You know, we're just.
If you did, you had lap belts.
Yeah, the stereo's blasting with the Jensen or 6x9s. You know, we're like, it was just great times. You know, it was fun times. I'm glad I lived through it. Some of the stuff we did was kind of. You look at it now, it's kind of crazy, but it was fun. It was. Everyone had a good time. There was no ill intent in anything. It was just good times cruising the pike, man. That was the stuff.
You're still around today, so obviously it wasn't that crazy.
Yes, it wasn't that crazy. Yeah,
it wasn't that crazy. At least
I'm
not as
still
you
here.
think, so.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Well, that right there is Rob Colannino's 1970 Plymouth Roadrunner. Rob, thanks for sitting down and talking to me today. I love hearing about the drag stories and things like that from your past. Like, it's awesome. It's an awesome car. It's beautiful. Like, I mean, it's really nice, even if it's not original or any of that. Like, it's a beautiful car.
It's original to me.
It's what I would love to drive around. But I want to thank you, though, man. Like,
No problem.
Thanks so
Appreciate
much
you coming
for it.
out.
And
I really enjoyed the time.
Yep. And is there anything you want to say to our viewers in YouTube land?
If you have a dream, achieve your dream. Like I said, mine took almost 30 years, but I have it, and now it'll be with me with the, for the rest of my life. So
It's probably well worth the
yep.
wait.
You can do it.
And with that, we'll see you in the next one.
All
Peace.
right.
I'll see you at the next car show, okay?
Be sure you like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.